today we are actually going to be making a homemade potato soup. I'm just going to show you the recipe, what we're going to be using, and how I'm going to be doing it. These are my shredded potatoes. I had potatoes on hand, and my little russet potatoes here had peeled about 6 larger potatoes. I mean, they were about this big, so a lot larger than these. Okay, and you use this device. Do not be afraid of the grater. I know a lot of people have gone to convenience, but things have gotten so expensive now. You need to use what you have, and that's what Lane and I are all about, is using what you have. So I shredded on the grater about 5 or 6 potatoes. Now I'm going to show you this. You know, potatoes have a lot of starch, a lot of water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze out some of this, some of the starch, some of that water. You see how much is in there. And I'm going to put it in my little crock pot. I'm just going to toss it in there for right now. This is a regular everyday kitchen, so it gets messy around here, unlike, you know, the Paula Deen kitchens and everything like that. This is just a regular everyday kitchen. Okay, so this right here was probably going to be about, I don't know, 4 to 5 cups of potatoes. This is what I've got in here so far. Okay. And I'm going to just go ahead. You see how much of the potato starch is in there? That's a lot. So I'm trying to squeeze out a lot. There's definitely going to be some left, and that's fine. In here. So that's a lot. Look at that. Look at how much. That is probably a 1/4 of a cup. I can't Sapphire here. She keeps thinking that there's some real food, like meat around here. Yeah, hello. Look at that face. But I have dropped some potato on the floor. She's not a vegetarian. She's a meatitarian. If you've seen the other videos. So this is what I've got here. Okay. So one of the other things that the recipe calls for is chicken broth. Well, what we do, I don't have any chicken broth. I do have some made, but I'm using that for something else in just a minute that I'll tell you about. So this right here is homemade chicken broth, or actually it's chicken bone broth. Okay. If you're making, you know, like roasted chicken in the oven, when you take that chicken out of the oven and you're taking all the meat off, and you have just your bones and your fat left over, don't throw it away. Okay, take that chicken bone, the chicken, you know, the little pieces of meat that are left over on it, and put it in a pot, a stock pot. Add some water to it, and then let it boil. You got to let it boil for for about an hour or 2, maybe longer. Some sort, put it in a baggie. We froze this, so I'm going to use this for my stock in here. Now this one is frozen, so I've been putting that in cold water, not hot water, to defrost. And I'm going to go ahead and put it in now. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and actually turn my crock pot on low for right now. And I'm going to put this bone broth in here. And my husband is lurking around the corner. Ha ha. Yes, lurking. I'll stir that up a little bit. Get it mixed. Okay. And that heat will help to get some of the frozen out there. Say hey, honey.
Hi.
And here would be the cat, again, trying to get at food that's not even in here. This is not meat, ding dong. Alright, so for...
You can use celery in there if you want. If you want to dice up, a little bit of celery, you can.
You're welcome to dice it up. We're trying to decide if we want to put celery in or should we put it in there. So, all right. So this right here is also chicken broth. This is chicken broth that is boiled from the little cubes. But we have to have, this is 2 cups. But we have to have cream of chicken. And like I said, before, we like to use what we have on hand. So I had found a recipe for cream of chicken soup, condensed, to make your own. And I'm going to give a shout out to Give Me Some Oven, because that's where the recipe came from. Now this is 2 cups, so I'm doubling it. Now I'm going to have to, it's already boiled up, but I'm going to have to get it to boiling to add the rest of it, the rest of the ingredients. And the ingredients for this, we've got 3/4 of a cup of milk, which is actually, I'm going to double that since we're making a larger amount. I'm going to turn this on to probably about 9. So that's, while that's warming back up. And it's not going to take long to warm back up because it hasn't been on for very long. Ooh, I just need just a little bit of the new one. Because it's at about a cup and a quarter. I just need a little bit. Alright, so it's a cup and a half now. Alright, and it calls for 1/2 cup of flour, but like, again, since I'm doubling it, it's going to be a cup. Now, this recipe to make this chicken broth, or cream of chicken rather, calls for you to mix these 2 together first. So, I'm going to put that in there. And I'm going to take our whisk. I'm going to change hands here. And whisk that together. And I'm going to try not to make a complete mess like my little 9-year-old sometimes does when he's trying to stir things. But he does a good job. He's learning on some of this stuff. But he does a good job. But I'm going to try not being messy about this. But like I said before, you know what? This is a real kitchen. And real kitchens have messes. Just clean up after yourself. And if you see the steam coming up, that's going to be coming up to boil here in just a few minutes. And then we will add this. Okay. Still got a little bit of flour here that needs to be stirred in. Alright. Now, we also need to add a little bit of salt. The original recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt. And it also calls for 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. We're going to use 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder. And we can add these recipe components. Here so you can see. Alright, so we're actually using kosher salt. Okay, add it to this. Because when you are making your, whether it's whatever kind of dinner you're actually making, before you take it to the table when you're seasoning, there you go. At the stove, you want to use kosher salt.
Why?
Table salt, because it does not have the iodine in it. And
Kosher salt, sea salt, all those other salts besides iodized salt are for cooking.
yes,
They're for seasoning, whether it be pasta, whether it be beans or anything else. You don't want to use iodized salt. That's table salt. That's what you add to. This is kosher salt, sea salt. These are cooking salts. Table salt, iodized salt is just for adding some flavor at the end of the. When you're getting ready to eat it. And you have to be careful when you're using these cubes like this.
Alright. Can you, I need a 1/2 teaspoon in there. Because this is getting ready to boil, or it's actually too boiled. Yeah, you want to wait to use table salt at the table, hence
Yeah, that's what it is.
table salt.
You put it in here?
No, put it in that one so I can get this started. Alright, we used 1/2 teaspoon of
That was
garlic.
a teaspoon.
No, that was a 1/2 teaspoon. I already pulled it
Oh,
out.
okay. So I don't measure like this. I just measure with my hand.
Alright. Can you slowly pour that in for me? Okay, we're going to slowly pour while we're stirring with the whisk. And this will get thick, and it's supposed to, because it's supposed to be cream of chicken. Now you can make your chicken broth using bouillon
This is almost like
granules instead of cubes, but
the it's like making a backwards bechamel sauce in a sense, because you've got the milk, the flour, then you've got the chicken broth, and then you season it.
Now you want to make sure that you are continually stirring this because you do not want it to burn on the bottom of the pan. And we're going to go ahead and turn this off.
Did it call for pepper?
The recipe does for the whole thing, so we will add the pepper to
You want
it.
to put pepper in there?
Yeah, we can, but you'll have to go get it.
I'll do it.
Okay, I'm going to pull that off the heat a little bit.
When I put pepper in something, there's one thing that, you know, I was fortunate enough to work for a chef, and I worked in the kitchens.
All right.
Is that you can always add, but you can't take away. That's especially with salt. So.
All right, we're going to go ahead and pour this in. Pour that in for now.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this one. Okay. Now this is supposed to cook for between 5 and 6 hours. We are back and not ready to add the cream cheese yet, but what I did do, it is 4:30 in the afternoon, and what I'm doing is I just took the cream cheese out of the refrigerator. We need to let it kind of warm up a little bit, come to room temperature, so it'll be easier to cut, because I will cut it into chunks to put into our creamy potato soup. So I have stirred this quite a few times. Okay, and if you can see that, it's looking pretty good. Now, Wayne tasted this earlier, and he said it's a little salty, but you have to understand one thing. When we add in the cream cheese, that's going to take away some of the saltiness in there, and that's fine. And we'll taste it after we put in the cream cheese and it kind of melts to see what else we need to do about some of the flavoring. But one of the things we're going to do, I told you earlier that we like to take things that we already have and reuse them instead of going out and buying new stuff. Well, about a week ago, we had family over, and my mother took some celery sticks and cut them up. Well, I'm going to cut these into smaller pieces and put them in our potato soup. I'm not going to use all of them, but I am going to cut some of them up. It'll give us some more flavor. But I'm just going to cut them into, I guess that's 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch thick. Okay. And being that thin, they should cook, pretty well. And I'm going to go ahead and just take these that are all together and just cut those ends at one time. I'm going to take this, what I've got, and I'm going to plop it in there. I'm going to stir it up. Now I'm going to decide if I'm going to cut me some more. I may go ahead and cut me up a couple more of those stalks that I've got. At the end, yeah, I'm going to take some more. I'm going to cut some more. This is not in the original recipe, and that's fine. You can add stuff to your recipe. There's no problem with that at all. The thing is if you add too much of something, you can't take it out. And you really do have to know what you're doing in order to fix when you've overdone something. And I am not a culinary trained chef. I am just I got trained by my mother and learned from a lot of things from my husband cook. So I've learned that way. That is my field of expertise. This will probably be enough when it comes to the celery. This is a good amount here. And like I told you earlier, this is a real kitchen. It gets messy. It gets dirty. It's okay if they can't see my face. Sometimes they can see my hands and what I'm doing. She's trying to be a critic here. It's okay. It happens. All right. I don't care. I'm trying to cook here. All right. So I'm stirring up creamy potato soup in with the celery. And now I still have a few celery sticks left, and I can use that for later. All right, and then the next thing that you're going to see is we're going to be adding in our cream cheese. So, like I have said in a previous video, and I think it's a good idea. Never mind, I'm going to scratch that one out. Anyway, peace y'all. I'll see you in a bit. Bye now. Are about to add the cream cheese into our soup. Now, we need it to, when you buy your cream cheese, make sure you don't buy the fat-free cream cheese because you need all the fat. Okay. If you want a low-fat version, then you need to Google a low-fat version of potato soup. Okay. This version is full fat. Okay. So this has been left out for about 45 minutes to come to room temperature. And we are not going to put this in as a whole block because it's not going to melt as well. It's going to take longer, so we're going to cut it into smaller pieces, just little chunks. And once again, we have the Staring Sapphire. Now it's going to take a little bit for this cream cheese. I don't know if you can see that paw, but I can see it out of the corner of my eye. It's going to take a little bit for the cream cheese to melt. And that's okay, because this has been on high. Not on high, on low cooking. About 5 hours. 4.5, 5 hours. So we're just putting the chunks in. See, it's, and now we are just going to let this, we're going to stir it up, and the heat will help to melt that up. And when we get a little bit closer, we'll be able to taste it and then see what we need to add to this recipe. Because like I said earlier, Lane had tasted it and said it was a little bit salty. The cream cheese should help to balance that out a little bit. But once it melts, we'll be able to have a better idea of what needs to be added. Do you think anything needs to be added at this point? Or are we just going to let it melt?
Let it melt.
Okay. Alright, so we're just going to let this sit. We'll come back in a few minutes, stir it again. Then come back, stir it again until it's all completely stirred up. Alright, we'll see you in a few minutes. We are ready to plate up our creamy potato soup. All right, if you look at this soup, it is nice and creamy. All of our cream cheese has melted. The steam coming up, that's wonderful. So what we're going to do is we're going to plate this up into our bowl. Yes, that's a little messy. Like I said before, this is a real kitchen. And we have real messes. We make real messes here. And yes, I probably should use a ladle, but that's all right. Okay, so now we have the soup in the bowl. And I'm going to take some bacon. This is another one of our things that we do. Like I said, we take things we already have. So instead of going out and buying Bacos, I used some bacon that we had from last night when we had BLTs. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to crumple it up. Like this, and I'm going to sprinkle it on top, and then I'm going to take sharp cheddar cheese, and then this is just a small handheld grater, and if you can see, it's got the smaller grates on it, and I'm just going to grate up some cheese here. You don't have, you can put as much as what you want, a little or a lot. I'm just going to do about that much there. Pull that off. And then for one more bit of touch, I'm going to add a little paprika for color. And paprika does not really have any taste to it. And if you will pan in for a little bit closer view, there is our finished product. And we have a couple of biscuits that we made earlier. Will go. And there is our delicious creamy potato soup. I hope y'all enjoy. If you have any questions, feel free to just reach out and comment. And like we had talked about in another video, something I'm going to make kind of a ending. You can always fight over religion and politics when you talk to family and friends when they come over to visit you. But you can never fight over a good home-cooked meal. See y'all. Have a great night.